We know that there are different layers or aspects to Judaism, to the Torah. We know that there is the simple, the obvious meaning to what we read and what we learn. There's the hidden meaning, there's the secret meaning. Why would there be a secret meaning in the Torah? Torah means instruction, and if you're hiding, then it's not instruction. So how can an instruction be hidden? And why would it be hidden? We also know that after Mashiach comes, everything will be revealed. So then there won't be a hidden part to Torah anymore. It's just temporary. And this applies also to the celebration. We are celebrating the release, the gaining of freedom that the first Chabad Rebbe experienced on this day in 1798. What does it mean to be concealed or revealed, to be imprisoned or released? These are not only physical conditions, it's also a spiritual condition. So it works out something like this. There are parts of Torah that are meant to be revealed and shared publicly, and there are parts of Torah that are meant to be secret. What is the secret? Not some dangerous information with which you can blow up the world. That we have. That's not hidden. So what is the point? What is the need for secret? And if it is a secret, why do you tell us? That's kind of a tease. Hey, there's a part of the Torah you're never going to know. It's a secret. Thank you. Now, why do I need to know that? And besides, that's not a good way of keeping a secret. If you really keep a secret, no one knows you have a secret. But to walk around announcing that you have a secret is pretty much giving it away. Sooner or later, you're going to reveal the secret. So it's not that no one should know. When we say the secret part of Torah, we're talking about the parts of Torah that are extra sensitive, personal, or intimate in God's eyes. So God says, come to Mount Sinai, we'll talk. We came to Mount Sinai and God told us things. But the things that he told us were the things that were not exceptionally personal. Be nice to your mother. It's not so personal. Don't kill anybody, don't steal, don't... But as time went on, Torah being a living entity, more and more of Torah was revealed to us, meaning we got closer and closer to the things that God is particularly sensitive about, that is particularly personal to him. Like in any relationship, you don't start off with your most personal feelings. But if the relationship grows and matures, with time, you reveal more and more of the things that are personal and sensitive. So the secret is not because no one should know, not dangerous information. The secret means when I tell you something personal, when I tell you something sensitive, I expect you to treat it with a certain proper response. So one person tells another person a secret. Okay, then it's not a secret anymore. Now I can go tell everybody. No. If I tell you my secret, I expect you to treat it with the respect and with the dignity that it deserves. So it's still a secret, even if everyone in town knows. That's called revealing a secret. But after it's revealed, it's still a secret, meaning it's still personal, it's still sensitive, it is still intimate. You can't treat it like business as usual. When this happens, and God is ready to reveal a greater personal and sensitive subject, there's a resistance. Because in the world as we know it, there has to be a balance between holy and unholy. If you reveal the very holy, it creates an imbalance. You almost take people's freedom of choice away. It's like when parents get very upset about something a child does. And the child says, "Oh, I had no idea this was so important to you. You never told me." Very common, huh? I never told you because it's personal. Now I'm telling you because the situation demands the revelation of something more personal. So the child's reaction was, well, if I knew how sensitive that was, if I knew how much this meant to you, I would have been more careful. So in our relationship with God, over the 3,300 years since the giving of the Torah, we have been invited into more personal, more intimate details about Him. So every revelation is a revelation of Him. But because there is that resistance, you need to do something unusual to overcome the resistance. So the Alter Rebbe, Schneur Zalman, who was the first Chabad teacher, the first Chabad Rebbe, he was set to reveal something extremely sensitive and personal, and there was resistance in heaven. This is the secret part of Torah. You can't just teach it publicly. You got to make sure that whoever is hearing you, whoever you're teaching, has the requisite sensitivity, knows how to handle something so sensitive. So, because there was resistance in heaven, it evolves or devolves, and it creates a resistance on earth as well. So people slandered the Rebbe to the government, to the Tsar. The Tsar was paranoid. Everything anybody ever did or said was a revolution, because that's how dictators are. And so they arrested the Rebbe, and the accusation was treason, which is punishable by death. So I want to share with you a really fantastic insight into what it was that the Alter Rebbe was doing. His grandson, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, was asked, what are the teachings of Chabad and why are they necessary? You've had Judaism, you've had the Torah for 3,000 years without Chabad. Why all of a sudden? Which, to the government, to the Tsar, that meant you're hiding behind a religious facade, but you're really a political movement. And the proof is, Jews never needed Chabad before. For 3,000 years it was great, and all of a sudden you need this? Why? And here was the Rebbe's answer. Torah is like water. Without water, there's no life. Without Torah, there's no life. There certainly is no Jewish life. So it's an indispensable, absolute necessity. It's water. Another thing about water is that you can't ruin it. You can't ruin water. You can't spoil water. You know, all the toxic lakes and stuff. and people are worried about polluting the ocean. You can't pollute the ocean. You can put pollutants in the ocean. You can put toxins in water. You can't pollute the water itself. Water doesn't spoil like salt. It doesn't go bad. But what do you do when there are pollutants or toxins in the water? You put the water over a fire in a chainik, in a samovar, and the fire burns off the foreign pollutant and toxic ingredients, and then the water is drinkable because it was always water. Over time, the water of Torah collects toxins, non-Jewish ideas, non-Jewish attitudes. Because, we live in a world, the world has its ideas and thoughts, and it kind of finds its way into the water of Torah. So from time to time, the Torah has to produce its own cleansing mechanism. Hasidus, Chabad, is the fire that burns off the stuff that is not really Jewish, so that we're back to pure Jewish water. We should bottle that. You got smart water. The guy says, you pay $3 for that bottle of water? It's not working. If it's supposed to make you smart. So we have smart water, now we need Jewish water. Water without non-Jewish ingredients. So let's take a look. What are some of the non-Jewish ingredients that have found their way into Judaism and is making a wreck of Jewish life? And we can trace it back to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, of the first Chabad Rebbe, and of Chabad philosophy. I don't have to tell you, since you're here, you know that there is something different about Chabad. The people, the teachers, the kids, there's something different. What is it? It's very hard to get people to pin it down. What do you like about Chabad? Well, Chabad is very non-judgmental. You said it.
I didn't want to interrupt, but that's what I was thinking. I was mumbling it.
I heard you thinking. Yeah.
And accepting of all, like whether you're very observant, not observant,
Yes.
you know, they accept,
Right.
happy that you're taking any step.
Right, non-judgmental. Kind of funny because every time you come to a Chabad event, you're told what to do. That's non-judgmental. You meet a Chabad rabbi and the first question is, you like Shabbos candles? Have you put on tefillin today? There's a very good joke about a guy who says, I was at an event, and there was a convention of Chabad rabbis. There must have been 4,000 of them. And I made the mistake of saying, I haven't put on tefillin yet. And that's the last thing I remember. So, non-judgmental. It just so happens that we have about, more or less 613 judgments. So what does it mean to be non-judgmental? There is this thing in the world called religion. You've heard about it? There are religions, many religions, different religions. And somehow, to our great dismay. Judaism somehow got dragged into that category, and people actually believe that Judaism is a religion. That's a foreign substance, that's toxic. It is not a religion. It's what we are, who we are, and what we're here for. That's not religion. Religion basically says, whatever you are, you're wrong. You were born, too bad. Born in sin. You got to fix it. In other words, you have to undo your birth, you have to undo what you are, you have to stop being human, become an angel. And if you have to die for that to happen, well then, sometimes they'll actually help you along. But basically religion says, you can't be what you are, this is wrong. You gotta go to heaven. So if religion means the purpose or the desire to go to heaven, then Judaism is not a religion. Because Jews have no intentions of going anywhere. Why do you want to go anywhere? Stay here. Live long. If you can't be here, all right, you got to go someplace. So you go to heaven. Somebody said, if I can't go to Miami, okay, I'll go to heaven. It is not a goal to go to heaven. Why? Because that's where we came from. I was born in Prague. I'm not going back. Been there. Enough. It's a beautiful city, but so what? Heaven is a very nice place, but why would you want to go there? The reason we were created and the reason we are here, the reason we were born, is to bring God down to earth, not for us to get to heaven. Because if you look at the Torah, it's very clear. In the beginning, remember the words? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And that's the last time heaven is mentioned. The rest of the Torah is about earth. Well, that tells you something. If the entire goal is to live a certain way so that you'll go to heaven, shouldn't we hear more about it? Not a word. Not because we don't go to heaven, but because that's not the purpose. That's not the plan. It's not important. So religion, it turns out, is a way of life or a philosophy or a belief, a system by which you get to heaven. And when you get to heaven, you're going to discover that God is not there because he's on his way down while you're busy going up. So you're going to cross each other. There is no virtue to going to heaven. There's comfort. It's a reward. See, the word reward means you're retired. You're not serving anymore. And the reward is always very pleasant, because if it's not a reward. But on the other hand, if it's a reward, it means your job is done. We don't want our job to be done. We want to be employed. We want to be busy. We want to be productive. We want to serve God. So I was introduced to this pastor in Minnesota. Nice guy. Minnesota nice. And his first words, so do you believe in the Savior? And he wasn't being antagonistic. He was absolutely sincere. It's like, let's get this cleared away right from the start. You do or you don't believe in the Savior? So I said, actually, I'm not looking for God to serve me. I'm looking to serve Him. And the man started to cry. He says, I never thought of that. I mean, it is so obvious and so simple. Religion means you have a way of convincing God to give you. If you behave, if you believe, if you whatever it is, He'll give you, He'll take care of you, He'll bless you, He'll protect you. That's not what we want. Actually, if you think about it, if we were busy trying to get favors from God, look at our history. It's not working. What have we gotten so far? One tiny little state with no oil? Gas, that right. Second best. Natural gas. So we're not looking to get favors from God. We don't expect God to serve us. We want to serve Him. And it is so for the first time in his life, he heard this. It shattered him. He devotes his life to his religion and then realizes this is self-serving. I'm looking out for my interest, and I expect God to be devoted to me. Something's wrong. What kind of God is that? So here's the first revolutionary concept. Judaism is not a religion. And that's why Jews are not religious. We're not good at it. We're not the type. God spoke to us at Mount Sinai and said, make no graven images. How long did it take before we made a graven image? 40 days. 40 days later, what could happen already if you make a graven? Let's find out. It's the opposite of a religious mentality. So really, what we want is to be in the service of God, not to beg God to serve us. So Judaism is not a religion. We are not looking to get off earth and into heaven. We're looking to bring God down to earth. And why? Because that's the only explanation for creation. What does it mean? God creates us, puts us on earth, and says, let's see if you can get back to heaven. It's a nasty game. And who gains from this? So if you mess up, oh boy, you're going to suffer terribly. If you don't mess up, okay, so you can come back to heaven. That's not a good deal. It's not about getting to heaven. It's about how we can fulfill God's vision, God's plan, God's purpose in creation. Another radical idea from the Alter Rebbe that again gives us an insight into something a little more sensitive and a little more intimate into God Himself. What is a mitzvah? What does mitzvah mean? Right, but it's translated commandment. Right? We have 10 commandments. That's not a good translation. What is the Hebrew word? Yaseret hadibrot. Dibrot is not commandments.
Talking, no?
Yeah, statements. Statements, dibur, means communication. Communication means reveal something about yourself. Otherwise, you're not communicating. If you just point to a rock and say, that's a rock, that's not communication. Animals can do that too. Communication means if you can reveal something about yourself in words that another person can understand. That's called communication. So when God speaks to us, it's communication. He's telling you something about himself. So the word mitzvah does have the correct translation of instruction or command, but it's used because it means connection. Another way of saying communication is to say connection, because when you communicate, you become connected. When you don't know someone, where you haven't spoken, you're not connected. So if something happens, God forbid, negative to that person, it doesn't hurt you, because you're not connected. If something wonderful happens to that person, you're not rejoicing, because you're not connected. But once you communicate with someone, and if you communicate well, all of a sudden you're connected. There was one year, this time of the year, Hanukkah time, my wife and I decided we want to go to Israel for Hanukkah. Because if you've ever been to Minnesota, around this time of year, the lights are blinding. Actually, it begins in October. The lights go on. And by the time December comes around, if you light the biggest menorah in the world, it won't be noticeable. It's lost in the... So we decided, let's get out of here. We go to Minnesota. Let's go to Israel for Hanukkah. And it was wonderful. Any light you saw, you knew it was Jewish. The fourth night, or fourth evening, we were in Meir Sha'arim. You've heard of it?
Yeah.
It's a Jewish town.
Yeah.
We're walking down these narrow streets, and it's just beautiful seeing how all the stores close, everything shuts down, and everybody, men, women, children, are running up and down the stairs across the streets, carrying a menorah, carrying oil, candles. They're all busy because they light the menorah outside, right, in front of their door, in these little glass cases with the chimneys. Very, very nice. As we're walking up the street, there's a troop of soldiers coming the other direction, double file. They're wearing bulletproof vests, and they're on their way to some dangerous spot because Hanukkah, you got to be on the alert. They're walking through this Jewish neighborhood as if it were Beirut. They're so uncomfortable. And the people are so uncomfortable with them. Not a word is exchanged. So it's like they're walking through enemy territory. That ruined our whole experience. It felt so terrible. It felt so wrong. I don't think you see this in America. Here's the picture. You're lighting your menorah. You've got no other concern in your mind, in your heart. You're so excited, it's Hanukkah, you're lighting your menorah and you're celebrating. And why can you do that? Because these soldiers are making it safe for you to do that. So they're walking down your street as you're celebrating Hanukkah, and you can't say Chag Sameach. You can't wish them well. You can't offer a bracha, a prayer. They're wearing bulletproof vests for a reason.
Because it was Mea Shearim. You could put somewhere else where you
On the other hand, see, if it was Chabad, everyone would run over and give them the menorah.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
Here, you have it. Wherever you go, light it. Take a minute. Light the menorah. Okay, they're not Chabad. But say hello. Something. Huh? On the other hand, these guys are walking down the street to a dangerous area, wearing bulletproof vests to protect these people with their lives. And they can't say Chag Sameach. I'm going to go protect you with my life so that you can celebrate. But nothing. It was, you could cut the tension with a knife. And it just felt so terrible. Anyway, so the rest of the days of Hanukkah, I'm walking around thinking, what went wrong? How could this happen? And I started wondering, whose idea was it to create a Jewish state? I was told that some guy had a dream. And then I realized it wasn't a dream, it was drug-induced hallucination.
I know.
What was he thinking? Yes. Jews lived in Europe. Big countries. There were Jews in Russia, in the Soviet Union. Very big place. And the Jews there did not get along. Because if you were from white Russia, you couldn't tolerate the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainian Jew couldn't tolerate the Jew from white Russia. The Jews in Russia couldn't tolerate the Jews in Poland. The Jews in Poland couldn't tolerate each other. Because if you're not a Galiciana, you're not a real Jew, whatever. The Jews in Romania didn't get along, period, with anybody or anything. The Hungarians, come on. So this guy comes along and says, you know what, let's take all these Jews who live in very big countries, let's squeeze them all into this tiny little country. Whoever survives wins. What kind of idea was this? This is ridiculous.
It was a good idea.
We don't get along when we have plenty of space. How do you expect us to get along in a tiny little country? Actually, I saw this beautiful thing, only in Israel. Only in Israel. I was on a crowded bus. And the bus made a stop. A woman got on. There was no room in the bus. So she stood on the step inside the door without being able to get into the main part of the bus. The bus driver leans over and looks into her shopping bag. Typical. He says, eggplant. You know, if you cook it a little bit less and you add a little salt and you do a little like this, it comes out really good. And they get into a whole conversation on how to make baba ganoush. Only in Israel. Everybody knows what you're cooking, what's in your pot, and how you should do it better. So I'm thinking, what went wrong? Because the dream was Jews in Russia don't get along with Jews in Poland because Poles don't get along with Russians. What would happen if Jews stopped being Russians and stopped being Polish? What if Jews just went back to being Jewish? Would they get along? Of course. So that was the dream. Bring Jews back to Israel. No more Polish Jews, no more Hungarian Jews, no more Ukrainian Jews, just Jews. Good plan.
I thought you said it's not a good plan.
So the question is, what went wrong? So I did a little survey, walking up the streets of Yerushalayim. I stopped people and I said, excuse me, what are you? There are no Jews in Israel. There are no Jews. You stop anybody in Israel and say, what are you? Haredi. Chiloni. Chiloni Tahar. Extreme secular. Or religious. Or right-wing. Or left-wing. Or labor. Or Likud. Or anybody Jewish? So after many, many people, I stopped one guy, and I said, what are you? He says, a Jew. I said, where are you from?
United States.
He says, Cleveland. It was a great plan, but it hasn't happened yet. Instead of being Polish and Hungarian and Ukrainian, now we have become Dati, Haredi, Chiloni. Come on, the plan was to go back to being Jewish. Just Jewish, right?
That's a human being.
So the Baal Shem Tov said, every Jew is as Jewish as any other Jew. You can't be more Jewish, you can't be less Jewish. Because being a Jew is not a religion. It is not contingent on any belief, faith, practice. The Archbishop of France was a nice Jewish boy.
The Paris.
In fact, when he passed away, they found he had written a request to have a Jewish funeral.
Yeah.
His name was Lustig. So what are you doing being the Archbishop of France? It's a living.
Make good money.
But a Jew is a Jew. Now, if we could go back to that, we would be healthy and we would get along. Amen. So the secret of Chabad is not that we're not judgmental. We are. We have very strong judgments, very considered, carefully considered judgments. And after sitting in judgment and carefully reflecting on what is a Jew and who is a Jew, we came to the conclusion every Jew is infinitely valuable. That's not because of non-judgment, that is the judgment. So it's not tolerance, it's inseparable. We are inseparable. So even if I can't stand you, I'm stuck with you. And that's the beauty of Jews in Israel. The Chiloni and the Dati they cannot stand each other. They can't tolerate each other. Why? Why? Because we're all Jews. I'll give a quick example. Ask a guy who's very secular, and he can't stand the vuz-vuz. I said, what is your problem with the religious Jews? He says, why do they have to dress like the 18th century? I said, you have any Arab friends? He says, yeah. I said, they dress like the 4th century. He says, that's their tradition. Now, go explain this. The explanation is very simple. Arabs can dress any way they want. God bless you. Wear schmackers on your head. I don't care. Beautiful. But my fellow Jew dresses like the 18th century? So it's because we feel connected that it matters to us. Everything matters. How you make your eggplant is my business. Because we are connected. So that's the second principle of Chabad. First of all, we're not a religion. Second of all, every Jew is Jewish. There is no... Somebody said, I think it was Denver. And after I finished speaking, this guy raises his hand. And he says, I've been sitting here listening to you refer to me as Jewish. I resent that. I said, I think you walked into the wrong room. This is a Jewish event. He said, don't refer to me as Jewish. I said, what are you doing here? He says, no, you don't understand. When something is not quite blue, it's bluish. If it's not quite warm, it's warmish. And if it's not quite tall, it's tallish. I am not Jewish. I'm a Jew. I'm ishy about it. So there's no such thing as Jewish. A Jew is a complete, total Jew. Cannot get better. But then why the mitzvot? A Jew is Jewish because, like any blood relative, we are related to God through our soul, which is a little piece of Him. So we're inseparable. Jews and God. Inseparable. Sometimes we say He's our Father, we are His children. We're trying to find good examples of inseparability. So if we're that inseparable, why does God have to keep us busy with Shabbos and mikveh and tefillin and Yom Tovs? So here's the third insight. A mitzvah is not a commandment that you must do. A mitzvah means God telling us where He is so that we can join Him. Like the best example, God says, I created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day I rested. Where are you on the seventh day? Join me. I'm resting. Rest with me. So what does it mean to keep Shabbos? To keep Shabbos means, is God creating right now? No, He's resting. Okay, then I stop creating and I rest with Him. So all the mitzvot are God's invitation, God's begging us to join Him. He's holy. He says, please be holy with me. I am modest and humble. Be modest and humble with me. I worry about the poor. You worry too. It bothers me to see people suffer. It should bother you too, even though you're not the creator. So every mitzvah is another invitation. God tells us, this is what I'm doing. Can you join me in that? So what does He really want? He wants you. But on the same page. He wants you with Him, not far away or opposed to Him. So what happens if a Jew doesn't keep Shabbos? Put yourself in God's shoes. Because that secret has now been revealed. What does God feel when a Jew doesn't keep Shabbos? He's terribly bothered by the fact that the Jew is not with Him. So is He going to punish him for not keeping Shabbos? That not keeping Shabbos is not the issue. The issue is, if He is keeping Shabbos and you're not keeping Shabbos, He misses you. Like, very practical example, a religious, observant father is sitting at the Shabbos table, he's making Kiddush, and none of his kids want to come to the table. What hurts? The lack of observance? No. My children are not with me. That hurts. So, if your child doesn't come to the Shabbos table, is he less your child? Do you not need him anymore? Do you need him less? Or do you need him more? So our Jewishness is not dependent on the commandments. It's the other way around. Because I want you, because I need you, because you are mine, why don't you come with me when I'm keeping Shabbos? So the mitzvah comes out of the fact that we're Jewish, not what makes us Jewish. And this was a terrible mistake that crept into Jewish thinking in the 17th century and maybe even before that. If you don't keep Shabbos, you don't keep kosher, and you don't dress like a Jew, you're not Jewish. Where does that come from? Christianity. If you're not in, you're out. That's a religion. That's not true of Jews. So Hasidus came along and said, we've got to burn this toxin out of Yiddishkeit. Grandfathers telling their grandchildren in America, you don't look like a Jew, you don't eat like a Jew, you don't talk like a Jew, you're not a Jew. Which means you can sin your way out. Don't want to be Jewish? Simple solution. Commit 9 sins, you're out. And what a relief that would be, wouldn't it? Now that you're not Jewish anymore, you don't have to keep any of the mitzvahs. That's religion. You can't sin your way out, and a non-Jew can't mitzvah his way in. He has to convert to become a Jew. We didn't know this before Chabad made it popular. It was one of the secrets. And why was it a secret? Listen to what we're saying. God is connected to us in an inseparable way, so that even if we refuse Him, we reject Him, we don't believe in Him, we do the opposite of anything He asks. He needs us even more. That's a little personal. Let me tell you a quick story. You may have heard it already. There's this guy, there's this rabbi in Israel who for the last 40 years has been teaching professors at the university a course or a class in Talmud, Gemara. This rabbi is brilliant beyond description, so the professors just love it. They come. For 40 years it's been going on. There was one professor who refused to come. He was invited over and over, he refused to come. One day the rabbi meets this professor at some event. And the rabbi says to him, why don't you come? All your colleagues come. In fact, this year we're holding the class in your department, right down the hall. Come, you'll enjoy it. He says, I don't belong in a Talmud class because we have nothing in common. The rabbi says, we have nothing in common? What are you talking about? He says, you don't know me. I came to Israel as a teenager after the war, and I eat pork on Shabbos. So the rabbi says, only on Shabbos? He says, dafke on Shabbos. In spite, on Shabbos. So the rabbi says, you see, you said we have nothing in common? We have something in common. We both observe Shabbos. I observe it in a traditional, old-fashioned way, and you... The professor started coming to the class. But he explained to the other professors what the rabbi said was not just a good joke. It was a very inspiring and deeply meaningful statement. He says, I got it. I got it. What the rabbi was saying to me is, you don't belong at a Talmud class. We have nothing in common because you eat pork on Shabbos, so you're not Jewish. And through the joke, what the rabbi was saying to me was, listen to yourself. Why do you eat pork? Because you're angry at God. And you want to express that anger and that rejection and objection to what happened in the war. So you decided to do the most un-Jewish thing you can think of. What's the most un-Jewish thing? Eat pork. Steak levan. Not just non-kosher cow. Because a cow could be kosher. No, not good enough. Going to eat pork, which can't be kosher, even with an OU. But you started eating the pork, and it didn't feel like enough of a message to God. So you decided you're not only going to eat the pork, you're going to eat it on Shabbos. And that felt good. So you hear what you're saying? You believe in God, because who are you angry at? You believe that He runs the world, so it's His fault. You believe in the Torah, so you know that pork is not kosher. And you know that Shabbos is a holy day, that's why it feels better to eat the pork on Shabbos. So you believe in God, you believe in Hashgacha, you believe in the Torah, you believe in Kashrut, and you believe in Shabbos. You're a fanatic. You don't belong at a Talmud class. The Talmud talks about how terrible it is to eat pork. Isn't that your subject? Talmud talks about how holy Shabbos is. Learn it. You'll enjoy your sin even more. But the point of it is, a Jew is not Jewish because he keeps mitzvot. A Jew keeps mitzvot because he's Jewish. There's a guy back in Minnesota, a very, very simple, earthy, no-nonsense kind of a guy. He's a bus driver, actually. Drives a city bus. His wife came to our program, Chabad House, and she decided she wants to keep kosher. She comes home and tells her husband, we should keep kosher. He got very upset. He confronts me, and he says, all of a sudden I have to keep kosher? I'm 49 years old. I've never kept kosher. Give me one good reason. And don't give me no philosophy. That's a challenge. Now this guy happens to be a proud Jew. You know what I mean? Like a Jewish Jew. Yeah? So he says, give me one good reason that I should keep kosher. I said, because non-Jews don't. He says, oh. Like, what are you asking? Why should I keep kosher? Why should you keep kosher? You're right. The Irish should keep kosher. Cossacks should keep kosher. What are you asking? You keep kosher because it's a Jewish thing. How do I know it's a Jewish thing? Because nobody else does. So, since you're a Jew, you should keep kosher. how did we come to this condition where we think of people doing a mitzvah as being religious? That's toxins. It's not Jewish. So if you see a guy putting on tefillin in the airport, it's becoming a common scene. He puts on his talis, he puts on his tefillin in the airport, and your first reaction is, ooh, Orthodox. Not good. That's religious thinking. We are not religious. You see a man putting on tefillin, you should think, Jewish boy. Why? Non-Jews never put on tefillin. Never. Actually, I was in the airport early one morning, and I'm thinking, should I put my tefillin on in the airport? Or should I wait till I arrive, if I arrive, at my destination? I'm really thinking it back and forth, maybe better now, maybe better. As I'm thinking, this guy sitting next, he opens up his little satchel, takes out this little 2-foot rug. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
A little carpet. He puts it down on the floor, gets down on his knees, falls on his face, right in front of a Coke machine. I thought, if this guy can pray to a Coke machine, I'm putting on my tefillin. He inspired me. But he was being religious. I was just being practical, because by the time I get to where I'm going, it might be late, you know. So when you see a Jew doing a mitzvah, your reaction should be, oh, nice Jewish boy. Not religious. That's got to go. There's one other important point that the Alter Rebbe revealed for us. Once he revealed it, it is so obvious and so clear, but we just didn't focus on it. What is the relationship between your brain and your heart?
The heart pump,
Or in different words, what is the relationship between your intelligence and your emotions? Most people will tell you that there is a terrible conflict. Like when people say, my better judgment told me not to do it, and now I'm in trouble, because I did it. Why did I do it? I felt like it. But my mind was saying no. So what is the relationship between the mind and the heart? Conflict. Who wins? The heart. The Rebbe came along and said, you don't understand human nature. In the human system, the emotions, the heart, is like a child. And the mind is like a parent. The child has will, he has opinions, he has desires, but he doesn't have the authority. He doesn't want responsibility. He wants the parent to be responsible. The same is true between the mind and the heart. The heart doesn't want responsibility. It just has desires. But the heart wants the mind to make the decision. So when you have a feeling for something, that's not a decision. That's an option. You know, I would really enjoy eating this very unhealthy food. So I'm going to eat it. No. I would really enjoy eating it means, should I? If I don't enjoy it, then there's no question. But since I would enjoy it, I'm now asking, the emotion is asking, should I? When the mind says yes, then you can eat it with a clear conscience. If the mind says no, you're going to eat it, but you're going to feel terrible. So what is the healthy thing, the natural thing? The mind controls the heart. By nature. This is not a struggle, it's not a religious thing. It is our nature that we thrive on thoughtful behavior. And when we behave without thought, it feels good for a minute, and then we pay the price. Because that's not the way it's meant to be in the human system. The mind governs the heart. And therefore, it is perfectly healthy to say no to your feelings. See, psychology tells us it's a terrible thing. Don't ever suppress your feelings. Don't ever deny your feelings. Don't ever refuse your feelings. You're going to be psychologically damaged if you do that. The Rebbe says, no. The human being is essentially intelligent, not essentially emotional. So the stronger part in you, the authoritative part in you, the human part of you is the intelligence. The rest of you waits for your intelligence to give it direction, purpose, instruction. So if your heart says yes and your mind says no, you're not repressing. You're making an intelligent decision. That's what humans do. So when is it repressive? If you have two emotions conflicting with each other. You love and hate at the same time. That's a problem. But when your mind says, no, it's not a good idea, the emotions say, thank you. How was I supposed to know? So if you want to picture it, the heart is inside your body. It doesn't see, it doesn't hear, it doesn't know what's going on. So what does it get excited about? It's like people in a submarine. They have no idea. Where are we? Anybody else here? That's why they have this guy with the periscope, that little thing. There's one guy, he's peering into the periscope, and he sees an enemy ship. He says, we're in trouble. Everybody panics. See, they didn't see it. He saw it. And by telling everybody else what's going on, that creates the feeling. If he says, oh, one of ours, everybody's happy. So the heart is like the guys inside the submarine, and the mind is like the periscope. So the mind says, we got trouble. The heart goes into fear. If the mind says, this is good, the heart says, let's go for it. So, in our lifestyle plan, you don't have to believe every feeling. Ask your mind. Stop and think. You're not repressing. You're not going into conflict. You're being intelligent. And that's why Chabad means use your mind. Chachma, Bina, Das. CBD. Now we're everywhere. Actually, people always make the joke about, wherever you go, there's Coca-Cola and Chabad. There's one little difference. The success of Coca-Cola comes because they have a secret ingredient. And they keep it a secret. The success of Chabad is we have no secrets. whatever secret part of Torah there was, we reveal it, we teach it. So the Rebbe coming out of jail on this anniversary, the Rebbe coming out of jail meant you won. You can reveal the secrets now. You prove that you're really sincere and you're willing to sacrifice for it. Good. Now you're sensitive enough to reveal this secret. And that's why we're sitting here. One final thought. This difference between asking God to care for you versus doing for Him. If you break it down, we realize all the needs I have, every one of them, whether they're emotional, physical, biological, philosophical, any need I have comes from the fact that I have to exist. And to exist, there are many conditions. A human being cannot exist without food. You can't exist without water. You can't exist without a roof over your head. You need friends. You need security. You need a purpose. You need a plan. You need a future. You need investments, portfolios. What does all that do for you? It allows you to exist. Which means if you have everything you need to exist, then you can exist tomorrow and need it all over again. So if you have food and you have drink and you have a house, what have you accomplished? Tomorrow you will need food, you will need drink, and you will need a house. It's just a treadmill. It goes nowhere. It just repeats itself over and over. Because if you didn't have water and you didn't have food, you wouldn't need anything the next day because you won't exist. All need comes from my existence. God said, "Let there be." To be, you gotta do lots of stuff. On the other hand, God gives us a Torah and says, here's what you should be. So the difference between existing and living is that existence is a very conditional thing, has many demands, and it goes nowhere. It just maintains. Life means here's why you exist. Now, this is a crucial issue today, particularly because people have become hypersensitive to the pointlessness. What are we doing? So if your child or grandchild ever says to you, I didn't ask to be born, don't put him on Zoloft. He's not necessarily depressed or suicidal. He's simply intelligent. Mm-hmm. You tell him to clean up the room, and he says, I have to clean up a room? I didn't even ask to be born. I didn't ask to be born. So just hanging in there and existing is exhausting enough. Now I have to clean up a room too? I didn't ask to be born. This can be very scary, but it's really a positive development. I didn't ask to be born is such a fundamental truth. If your child says, I didn't ask to be born, you should say, neither did I. Who asks to be born? So go complain to grandma. But then you go to grandma and she says, well, I didn't ask to be born. So what, you got to go back to Adam and Eve? We don't ask to be born because we don't need to be. I have never heard anyone complain that they weren't born. That's true, no? So there's this guy in India, 27 years old. He took his parents to court. He sued them to pay all his bills for the rest of his life because they gave birth to him without his consent.
True story.
No.
True story?
True story.
You wouldn't lie.
So what does he want? He wants his parents to pay all of his bills, all of his expenses for the rest of his life. He's not even Jewish.
That's a good one.
They threw it out of court. For a number of reasons. Reason number one, the parents said, we were looking to get your consent. We couldn't find you. The other argument was, we didn't ask to be born either. Doesn't it make sense? Really? Sounds like a joke. But if you didn't sign a contract, you didn't make an oral agreement, you never promised to do anything, your parents go ahead, give birth to you, and now you got to pay taxes? How does that make any sense? You invite me to an expensive restaurant and then tell me to pay the bill? How does this work? And the same is true with God. God creates you, doesn't ask. He says, okay, now you better. I better? How did this happen? You must, you need. Listen to what is happening in the world today. It's exciting and it's a little scary. For all of history, bottom line, what motivated people to do what they do? Survival. The farmer gets up 4 o'clock in the morning and he goes out there and he milks the cow and then he goes out and plows the field because it's the season and he's got to get it done on time, because if not, you're going to die. Today, we wake a child up to go to kindergarten. And we get upset because it's late. And the kid is not doing what he needs to do. He's got to get his shoe on. Because without the shoe, he can't get on the bus, and he's going to miss the bus. He misses the bus, he doesn't go to school. If he doesn't go to school, he's not going to graduate. If he doesn't graduate, he won't get into college. If he doesn't get into college, he won't get a good job. If he doesn't get a good job, he won't make enough money, and he is not going to have a nice house, or not, he's going to die. So when you tell the kindergarten kid, hurry up, you got to catch the bus. You want to die? Because that's the ultimate. Here's the exciting and scary thing. It's not working anymore. For all of history, people got up and milked the cow and plowed the fields and harvested and gathered and hunted and did whatever. Why? Because you don't want to die. Today, people have like an allergic reaction. You got to do this. I have to do this? I didn't even ask to be born. Oh, you want to die? Don't threaten me. I am not going to live my life so that I don't die. It's not working anymore. You tell young people, don't play around with drugs. It can kill you. And they're waiting for you to finish the sentence. Yeah, so? They do dangerous things, ridiculous things. It can kill me? Yeah, so what's your point? All of a sudden it doesn't work. You come to people and say, you have to put on tefillin and keep kosher, go to the mikveh. You have to. No, I don't. You want to go to hell? You want to burn in hell when you die? Oh, the threat. It always boils down to a threat. And amazingly, mind-boggling, for 5,000 years that worked. Now, for the first time, people are saying, don't threaten me. Don't threaten me. Because if you have to threaten me, it means you don't have a good argument. Why does it always end up with a threat? So you say to your child, you must get a good grade in school. You must get along with your friends. You must. And the kid says, no, I don't. You say, yes, you do. The kid says, no, I don't. What's your next move? A threat. And that tells the child that you're wrong and he's right. Because you see, you had to resort to a threat. I'll send you to your room. In other words, you've run out of what to say.
What do you say?
Life means your existence has a purpose. That's the definition of life. We exist and we need a good excuse. Because to just exist is depressing, it's embarrassing, and it's undignified for a human being. So we've always asked, what is the purpose of life? Chabad comes along and says, you've been listening to you've been reading the wrong books, you're getting the wrong message. What is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of existing and working and getting money and getting food and getting drink and taking care of your needs? What's the point? The answer is life. So the question is, what is the purpose of existing? Because it needs a purpose. We're not a bump on a log that can just hang around. We need a purpose. Life is the purpose. Life means your existence is making a difference. By existing, you're having an influence, you're having an effect, you're making a contribution. Things are different because you exist. Now, they can be different in a negative way. You're making things much worse. Or in a positive way, you're making things much better. That's life. So what it boils down to is this. Anything you need is not life. See how confused we are? I mean, if I really, really need it, then that's my life. No. If you really, really need it, that's your existence. What is life? Life is those things that you don't need, but someone needs it from you. So if I stop a guy in the street and I say, would you like to put on tefillin? He says, no, I don't need that. I said, I know. Nobody needs that. But if you can do God a favor and you have 5 minutes to spare, he's asking you to put on tefillin. Can you do this? The answer is yes. I just heard last night, I was in Florida, and this guy tells me that he had a heart attack, young man, He was in critical condition, and his family went to all the people they know and all their neighbors and congregants and so on and said, please, my husband is in critical condition. Can you put on tefillin for his sake that he should have a recovery? No one refused. But I can promise you that those same people, if you had stopped them and said, you should really put on tefillin, nobody would do it. You know how amazing this is? If I say you need to put on tefillin, nobody's going to do it. If I say somebody else needs you to put on tefillin, they all do it. What's amazing is to say to a secular person, if you put on tefillin, maybe my husband will recover from his heart attack. That's the most ridiculous thing you could possibly say. Why would any reasonable person say, what are you talking? If I put on tefillin, his heart will heal? What is this, voodoo? Nobody said that. They all put on tefillin. So we see from this a number of things. First of all, don't underestimate a Jew. If what you're asking him to do is right, he will respond correctly. Even though it makes absolutely no sense. First of all, what good does putting on tefillin ever do? And now you're telling me that if I put on tefillin, some guy in the hospital will recover? Really? You need me to put on tefillin? Which shows, if you tell me to do what I need, I don't want to hear it. First of all, I know what I need. Secondly, everybody's telling me what I need. I can't take it anymore. Life tells you what you need. Try going for a few days without food. Nature will remind you that you need to eat. Biology will remind you that you need to eat. Try going without sleep. No, you can't. You must sleep. That's just biology. Then we come to an affluent society. You have to have a car. What do you do? Go by subway? What are you, a peasant? You have to have a car, like a mensch. Not a Ford. Come on. Get a car like a mensch. Advertisements, bombarded by the message of what you need. You need to have one of these. You got to have this. This is to die for. Horrible expression. You have postnasal drip? You must get this product right now. Ask your doctor. If it doesn't kill you, take it. So we eventually get really depressed from all these demands and needs and have to and must. So we're looking for relief. So you go for therapy. You come to the therapist and you say, you know, my job is just so stressful. I'm always worried, what if I get fired and what if I don't make enough money and I can't pay the bills? These demands are just too heavy. What does the therapist say? You think that's your problem? You know your mother didn't really want you. Your father wanted you to be a boy. And you're very jealous of your brother. You have needs you haven't even thought of yet. Thank you very much. So, you're not getting any relief there. Go to religion. Maybe religion will give you some peace of mind. So you go to a religious authority and you say, I can't take this anymore. too much burden. And what is the religious message? Whoa, you think you have problems now? After you die. Then you're really going to have problems. So there's no relief. Chabad comes along and says, everything you need is only your existence. Life you don't need, and that's the beauty of it. Life means you are needed for things you don't need. So if we would focus on the things we don't need, we would have two benefits, huge benefits. First of all, it's so liberating. I don't need. I didn't ask to be born. This is not my problem. So the bill has to get paid? You pay it. Don't tell me I have to pay it. On the other hand, the question of why am I here is completely answered. You're here because somebody needs you, not because you're needy. So here's the bottom line. We're celebrating a holiday in which this secret was revealed to us, and it is more relevant today than 200 years ago. If you think about your needs, you're getting depressed. Because we're not here to take care of our needs. That's running on a treadmill going nowhere. You are here because you are needed. Find out who needs you and for what, and you have a life. And life is not a burden. Life carries you. Life lifts you up, even when you don't have energy. I think the best example is, if you're home alone and you're going to make supper, how much energy are you going to put into the cooking, the preparing? You'll open a jar. But somebody calls and says, can I come over? All of a sudden it's a party. You'll cook up a storm. And love it. Because you don't need it. Somebody needs it. When we are told that somebody needs me, even if it's as ridiculous as put on tefillin so that his heart will heal, you're telling me that I am needed. That's life. I respond to that. Tell me I need it? What are you, a salesman? I don't want to hear it. So, this night, we should make a resolution. Because it's like a kind of a Rosh Hashanah. The resolution should be, we have to get better at doing things we don't need. It's a relief. Takes your mind off your existence. And when you take your mind off your existence, you have new energy to serve others. So here's the simple formula. We can either be needy or needed. That's the free choice that we have. You have needs, you worry about it, you think about it, you're needy, you're headed for a depression. If you think about who needs you, how necessary you are to God's plan, how a mitzvah means God asking you to join Him, not a commandment, but a need, and you can do what He needs, we have a very nice world. Imagine tomorrow morning, everybody in the world wakes up and says, I didn't ask to be born. So I don't need anything. I don't care. Oh, you need something? That's exciting. God calls to Avraham, and Avraham says, Hineni. Here I am. Hineni means here I am. But really what it means is, I'm unemployed. I didn't ask to be born. So you need something? Tell me. I got nothing else to do. So if you need me, it's Yontif. What I need? Nothing to celebrate. So let's focus on how needed we are. God didn't tell us this at the beginning, and we convinced ourselves that we need it. You need to be frum. You need to be religious. You need to be orthodox. You need to be Shomer Shabbos. You need to be kosher. You need to be kosher. I love that expression. Anybody asks, are you kosher? Actually, I'm not on the food chain.
On the food chain.
You mean, is my kitchen kosher? That's like saying, is your kitchen Jewish? Well, if I'm Jewish and it's my kitchen, yeah, it's going to be Jewish. So, let's do things we don't need, but we are needed for. It'll keep us young, it'll keep us inspired, it'll keep us healthy, and most of all, it'll fulfill the purpose for which we exist. And that is definitely a Yom Tov. When we're in the mode of serving, nothing can stop us. Nothing can discourage us. It is so much more human to be needed than to be needy. I know I have to go to work. I know I have to I don't want to. I really don't want to. But if you call me and say you need me, you've made my day.
Actually, that's true.
Yeah.
That's what Judaism is about. Judaism is 613 things you don't need. So do it. L'chaim.